Word. What's
Yo,
up?
what's up? It's Fat Jesus Live and Rebirth of the Word. What
Yo,
are we
what's up?
talking
What's up? What's
about?
up?
Christianity before Christ? John
Yeah,
G. Jackson. What's up with this book? Another book?
yeah, man. Hey, I'm telling you, man. These books just be. I tell you, I got a list of them on my website, rebirthoftheword.com.
Just
And
pulled
it's
that
just a
off
list.
off his library shelf. That's what
Yeah,
he
just be
did.
like, I just be like, man, I just want to talk. It's just a list of books that I feel like I want to talk about. I see something that some people, when people go viral for something, I'll be like, oh man, it's a pretty interesting topic they're talking about. And I go like, oh, let me go see if I got a book on that, and I'll go look at it and see some of the tabs on it, and I'll be like, man, I'm gonna go over it. So
If you're
yeah,
gonna
that's
be looking for this guy, he's not around no more. He passed away in 1993. So John G. Jackson is a well-respected man. He passed away in October 13th and resided in Chicago, Illinois. That's if you want to go visit his where he's uh, where he's buried. That's where it's going to be at. If you live out there, pay your respects. This man is well known for a couple of books, actually. And he's a historian, amazing historian. He was invited to a couple of universities to speak to. They actually named him the professor. But what catches my eye is that he never graduated from college or a university.
oh,
He's
I didn't
actually
even know that.
self-taught. Yeah.
I
He's a
didn't even know that.
self-taught, like you, Rebirth of the Word,
I never
self-taught.
knew that. I didn't even look at that.
And and he could have gotten a university degree or an honorary university degree, and it doesn't say that he denied it, but even if they tried to give it to him, he would have. And there is a reason why he never accepted any degree, and there is a huge thing in our society. There is a big problem, and there is this: scholars did not need to explicitly, because they were banned in, like, Black history. They simply classified any research arguing that African civilizations predated or heavily influenced European cultures as speculative fiction or mythology without peer-reviewed status. These authors could not get university jobs, library placements, or mainstream distribution. And that is why he did not hunt down a university degree. But he could have. He could have.
I
And
didn't
that is
even
the
know that,
reason.
to be honest with you. I mean,
There's
so
a technical reason why he didn't. And why he remained himself away from the mainstream is so that he can have free roaming rights to communicate. And because he was
wait,
understood
wait,
and given
wait,
that
wait. Say that
respect.
part again. To communicate, what do you mean by that? Because I think that's
So
pretty interesting.
so that he can have the right to go ahead and study history, the facts of history, and communicate it out at the university level. And he was invited
Yeah.
to the university level, and there were people that were, I mean, there were students, doctorate degree students, that would reference his what
Was
his
he
studies were.
was he black and white? That's what, and that's an important reason why I asked that. Was he black or white?
He was a black man. So
Okay, so when you think about that, a black man sharing something, most people think of that as Afrocentric. Like, oh yeah, you're just saying this is all Africa because you're saying that all black people,
well, this
um,
is a systemic problem across America, and not only in America, in South Africa
mm,
and in other countries around the world, where Africans or blacks in general, or any minorities, honestly, are treated like, because they come from a third world country. Even in South America, professors or people with degrees are treated like they're because they're in a third world country, that they're second rate citizens, and that their degrees or their university degrees are less than the European degrees, and they're
mhm,
not. They're not.
mm, mm,
They actually study harder. They receive. I mean, they know like 3 to 5. languages. I don't know 3 to 5 languages. I only know 2. But they're forced to learn all these languages in their degree levels. In Germany, it's the same thing. And the Audubon University and everything like that is very hard to get into that. And they're all over the world. I mean, and that's in high school. And you got to learn 5 languages. And if you can't pass those classes, and then they kick you out. So there are schools across this world that you must be the top of the top. It doesn't matter what color you are, as long as you are smart, you will be part of that school, and that's all they look for. So yeah, there are schools out there that don't look at your color or your culture. They look for how smart you are, because all they care about is pushing out intelligent people. And but unfortunately, there are schools out there that have a certain pedigree because their parents or someone's parents has graduated from there, and it doesn't matter how dumb you are, because it's who you know, it's not what you know.
I say that a lot. It's just interesting because I know that the reason why I asked is if he was black or white, and I bring that up because it's important, because a lot of times when black people share something, this is something that I've witnessed. A lot of people who are not black, they say, "Oh, well, you think everything is African," And this book literally used Egypt as one of the sources. A lot of Egyptians don't claim the African side, but you're on the African continent, so guess what? You're African. I never understood that argument. When I hear the people, and it's mostly because of the word black. And you can look at this. The front of this cover where you can see brown skin. I mean, literally, that's brown skin. So that's it's not white skin. You see something that's tannish, possibly white with a tan, and then you definitely see brown skin, right? And you definitely see that in the hieroglyphs and all throughout Egypt, right? So when people say Africans didn't have anything to do with it, or black people didn't have anything to do with it, I'm like, either one of two things that's happening. One, you're blind. Two, you're colorblind. Because obviously you can see it if you can see color. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not sitting here saying that everything is African, because no, every place has its own tradition. That's just like saying every family is the same. That's bogus and crazy. Every family has their own traditions and thoughts, even when it comes to basic Christianity and Christmas, right? You know what I'm saying? There's everybody has their own traditions that they do, right? Their own little things that they do on the side. So I don't know what the argument is, but I also know that Egypt was a mixture of people, and I know Africa is a mixture of people. Matter of fact, Africa in itself is the most genetic diversified place in the world. So I mean, what you find in Africa, you can find everywhere. I mean, I've heard people say, well, you can only find blonde hair outside of Africa and other places, and I'm like, man, don't you know that some of the oldest haplogroups carry blonde hair, and they have no European DNA or anything like that? So it's just, and it goes back to the haplogroups and the DNA, and it's just so arguments. And I'm just like, why y'all arguing? So the idea in this discussion today is we're going to go over this book. Is Christianity
and young kids, they would fall in love with whoever they love, and then the parents jump in and says, you can't marry her, you can't marry him, and that's another thing too. Again, it's who you know and not what you know.
Yeah, because mixing up religion and ideas is a no-no for some people, right? Even in the same communicating and denomination, you can look at Christianity and Catholicism.
I love Shakespeare, because it really resounds the old, and everybody knows Romeo and Juliet, right? Romeo and Juliet talks about, it doesn't matter if they're the same color or whatever, that was in the play, but I mean, it could resound as two different cultures.
Well, that you brought a good point. A lot of people, when they see a character in a certain color, they believe that's what it has to always be. But I follow DC.
We're talking about the Little Mermaid now.
No, I'm talking about anything. And that was a good point too. Just looking at that, I mean, the Little Mermaid. I mean, you can go back and see in every culture around the world that they have their own idea of mermaids. But some of the oldest civilizations that have a writing system talks about mermaids. Matter of fact, you can find them in Mesopotamia. You literally find mermaids in Mesopotamia.
And Greek mythology, the evil mermaid is black,
but that
and the good mermaid is white. I'm like, what the hell?
well
Why
that
you
that
have
has
to paint the bad mermaid black? You
and
know?
there's actually a symbolic idea about that. So when you look at brown skins, I've had people say, "Well, you look brown." That's what they told me. They say I look brown, and that's because my hair is not the typical, African American way. My father's African American, my mother's German, and I have a mixture of everything in between that. I actually wrote about it in my book, Journey Through the Origins of History, of exactly what I'm mixed with. And then I also found out I have some Native American / what they call Mexican DNA. So I don't even know how to even approach that idea. But the thing is that I've been told I'm brown. So I literally have a big black truck with big black rims on there, and I wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. When
Well,
I was a little
because
kid,
black is beautiful, man. That's right. That's right, baby. You know,
but there's
there's
a
a
whole
beauty to black.
there's a beauty in every color, and I think that's why color resonates with people differently and does things differently to certain people. But I've always been a person that listened to hip hop, liked hip hop. I love hip hop, but I've also liked the rugged look of boots, and then a cowboy hat. I never really liked shoes in the hip hop community. People walk, like, try not to crease up their shoes, and I was like, yo, you wearing them outside, that's the first thing that hits the ground. That's definitely going to be the first thing that messes up, right? So I never understood the idea of having to walk a certain funny way, because your shoes, you don't want to mess up your shoes. They're made for walking. If you want to really take care of them, buy 2 pairs of them, 3 pairs of them, you know what I'm saying, and use them as they come and go, right? But I always used to play outside in the woods. I used to like to go in the woods and play. So I used to have to wear some type of boots or some type of, stuff to keep, around here in Georgia, you got these snakes and stuff like that. You got to be careful about what you're doing in these woods sometimes, right? I mean, I've got videos of me walking deep in the woods just to go fishing. I probably would never do that at this age right now, just because I think that was kind of young and dumb, because it's out there in the woods. You never know what's out there. Alligators, snakes, by the time you get back to your car, if you get bit by a snake, you probably won't make it. But the idea is that I always like that rugged stuff. So I always had, I get out my truck and I had people say, I never seen a black cowboy jump out of truck. And I'm like, yo, it's just something that I like. It's not, I'm not picking it because, everybody else does it.
Yeah, where is your hat today? What's going on?
I actually, it's been so hot out here. The strings that been going around the hats, like some of the hats that I have, the glue came off, so I got to go get some glue.
Oh no! You need to start buying some new hat. You guys need to donate some money. Get them a new hat, man.
Just buy my book, Journey.
I got me a new hat. Look at this one. This one's nice. I got there's a little fisherman, seaman in there. It's pretty nice little hat that I figure I needed to splurge in hats myself.
Nah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go get some glue in the next, probably tomorrow. But the book that we're talking about today is John G. Jackson, Christianity Before Christ. Now, I've heard so many ideas about Christ before Christianity, like how the Old Testament talks about a Messiah and so on and so forth. And
this is Professor Jackson is actually, we need to respect him and his title that everybody gave him. I know that, rest in peace, that he's no longer with us. He gave lectures at Rutgers University in New Jersey, New York University in New York, and Northwestern University and other colleges in Illinois. I don't know. He was in Illinois a lot, to tell you the truth. I don't know if he lived there or something.
So one of the things that I liked about this book
without a formal degree either.
No, yeah, that's what I like about it, about this book, is that, I'm a firm believer in certain subjects in this world. I don't think you need a degree for it to say that you have credentials. I think there's only a small groups of them, like doctors, nurses, teachers, chemists, stuff like that, because they have to learn new material as new things come along, like especially teachers. They're the bread and butter. They teach everybody who they are in the first place. So why wouldn't they be the first foundational idea of making sure that, they got the tools that they have to teach these students? And that's why I say a lot of people, when it comes like to history, history is not going to change in World War II. We pretty much know everything we need to know about World War II unless we find new diaries and hidden messages and stuff like that. But as far as the date that comes, we know that's going to stay the same. That's never going to change, right?
Now, before our viewers start saying our government stopped him before he can get any further, no, that's not the truth. It wasn't the government. It was actually certain people out there along the way that did not like what he was saying, and so they used the system against him to keep him from talking. So
Mhm.
it wasn't the government. It wasn't they didn't like had the police stop him or arrest him or certain things like that because he was a professional, but they used the banking system and they used the system against him
That's what people
along the
talk about
way.
the system. That's why when
Yeah.
people say there's a system for this stuff, there is. But the
They
thing
made
is,
it
is that
hard for him.
but
That's
this
what
is
they
the
did.
thing. This is the thing. I can tell you right now, there's a lot of podcasters on X right now. Everybody wants to be a podcaster. Everybody wants to have a voice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Most people say what they've heard.
I don't
I've
want to be a
never.
podcaster.
No, I don't even. I mean, that's what
I don't
it's
know what
called.
we're doing here.
But this is the thing is that a lot of people say what they think they've heard from somebody else. But the reason why a lot of people say, oh, when a black person or somebody brown or African American descent or something talks about this stuff, they're saying, oh, you think everything is African, but you go into the history of this stuff. So obviously the Abrahamic faith in some sense said that there was going to be some sort of a Jesus. Now they said that they couldn't tell you exactly how that was going to be about. The reason why, because they knew culture was going to change. They know that linguistics was going to change. Language was going to change. We don't speak the same language we spoke when we first speaking about 1,000,000 years ago. When I actually have a peer-reviewed article that talks about the beginning of language. Is just crazy is that people don't understand that language changed. So maybe it's Jesus now. It might not be Jesus 2,000 years from now. It sure wasn't Jesus 2,000 years when it first started. So 2,000 years from now, it may not. That might be the name. Or maybe English may be the basic foundational language that everybody has to learn. Like you said, you can speak 2 languages. Maybe in the future, at bare minimum, everybody's going to have to learn 3 languages at bare minimum. Everybody, right? You never
Yeah.
know. So the idea that language and culture and things changed, they understood that there was going to be somebody who was going to be the one who's going to come back. So this book right here says, like one of the first tabs that I have on here, it says the title of this essay may appear to some to be paradoxical. They might ask, how could there be a Christianity before Christ?
How could there?
Well, let's think about it.
I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm always bringing that up.
Yeah,
How could Christianity even exist if Christ didn't come yet?
Okay, so when do you what dates do you know that Christianity started?
That's a good question. It's just you caught me off guard right there. I mean, 0 before Christ, 0 BC.
there's really no
I mean, I'm using common sense. 0.
well, that would be a very logical
before Christ was born.
Answer.
Did I get the $500?
I mean, let's think about that. They don't really have a 0. It goes from BC straight to AD, and there's no 0 in between it, right? So a lot of people, so instead of me just giving the answer, because of course I have the answer, I have the book right here and stuff like that. What most people, what we got a lot of commentary back on our last episode. So a lot of people were saying they liked how we used Grok in our thing, because 99.9% of the people, if they don't know what they're going to do, they're going to go to some kind of search network. 9 times out of 10 is either going to be Grok, ChatGPT, or whatever favorite search engine or answer looking device that they use, right? So we're going to do this. So tell me if you can hear this, Fat Jesus. Test.
No.
Test.
Oh yeah,
Loud
I hear
clear.
it.
What's up?
Yeah. All right. So the question is, when did Christianity begin?
Christianity began in the 1st century AD, right after Jesus' death and resurrection, around 30 to 33 AD, with his followers spreading his teachings. The real kickoff was Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came down and the apostles started preaching boldly.
Okay, when was Jesus born? I got to get something for that. I said that last time.
Scholars
Yeah, you did.
generally agree Jesus was born between 6 and 4 BC, not in year 0 or 1 AD. The dating comes from the Bible placing his birth during King Herod the Great's reign, who died in 4 BC. The whole BC AD system was calculated centuries later and got the starting point a few years off. We don't know the exact day either. December 25th was picked much later.
So, hey, so I want to bring something up about this. So, December 25th, I just want to let everybody in there know that it's in this book also. So, it's a tab. I'm just going to say it now. December 25th is also the Iranian god birth of Mithra. So, so check this out.
Whoa.
Hey, Grok, tell me about Mithra, the Iranian god that was born in December 25th.
Mithra was an ancient Iranian deity of light, truth, and covenants, worshipped in Persia way before Christianity. He was a big deal in Zoroastrianism, too. The idea that he was born on December 25th is actually a myth. December 25th was the Roman festival of Sol Invictus, and the Mithraic cult that spread in Rome celebrated his birth around then, but the original Persian Mithra didn't have a December 25th birthday. The overlap with Christmas is more coincidence than direct copying, since early Christians picked that date to replace pagan festivals.
So we're going to look into this right here because it's actually in this book. I actually posted that. So that's actually in one of these tabs. So we'll get to that. So the next tab that I found interesting on here was it says Archbishop James Ussher in 1630 announced that the world was created by God in the year 4004 BC. So when I go around, and I've done this plenty of times, when I go around and tell people, hey, this is what I know. The world was created around 4004 BC. They're like, oh, stop lying. Why you say that? Blah, blah, blah. I was actually say, yo, there's an archbishop that actually started that. So like when I try to tell people stuff, I see if they want to have a conversation with me or if they just want to argue with me, right? Because I know that there's many different dates, right? I know that there's 6,000 that it took the world 6,000 years to be created. I know about how the world is a certain amount of billion years old, depending on who you talk to. But like it says right here, it says Archbishop James Ussher in 1630 announced that the world was created by God but in the year 4000 BC. In his Annals of the Ancient and New Testament, London, 1650, cited by Andrew Dixon White, A History of the Warfare of Science with Theology and Christendom, Volume 1, New York, D. Appleton and Company, 1896, page 9. So he gives a source. This is what I like about people.
That's right. Me too.
You say something that somebody says, and you go and do your research on why they said that, right? You're not saying, hey, I agree with this, because a lot of people, you've seen it plenty of times. How many times have you seen it where I've shared something to somebody and and they're like, oh, you believe in this? And I'm like, no, that's just what I read. I'm just telling you I think this is interesting. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it even goes in here because this is part of the flat Earth globe.
I'm Joe Rogan. I just read it. You know
what I'm saying? Now we talked about flat Earth and the globe.
I'm not part of
days
it.
Ago, right?
I just read it.
And what was it? It says here's the tab. It says heaven and earth center and circumference were created all together in the same instant. This world took place and man was created by the Trinity on October 23rd, 4000 BC at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 9 o'clock in the morning, they give a specific time in the morning.
Wow.
So they're basically telling you, or he's saying right here, that time has always been around. So time has always been relative. Time has always been relative. It's always been relative to us. So, and this is just something that I've read. And then he goes into more quotes what this guy says. He gets more and more quotes. Okay. And then he goes and says in the next tab, there are numerous parallels to the Genesis stories in the mythologies of many ancient peoples, and I shall briefly recount a few of them for purposes of comparison. The Jehovistic story told of how God fashioned the first man of clay as a potter might do. Then, having kneaded the model into proper shape, the deity and animated it with his breath. The first man was called Adam. In the ancient Hebrew language, the word for man was Adam. The word for ground was Adamah. So man was derived from the ground of earth or earth. So this is pretty interesting. So two things that's interesting to me is that they talk about clay. Well, one of the most important gods in the ancient Egyptian mythology is Knum, Knum.
No
And
way.
he is creating a human on a potter's wheel. So obviously the Abrahamic faith, whatever you want to look at it as, or which one was this? The Jehovah witnesses, what they believe is identical when it comes to clay out.
Well, they do a lot of the well, they really work really hard to be fact checkers on being connected to religion. When it comes to Christianity, I've noticed the Jehovah Witness or as you call isn't Jehovah Witness Mormons, or are they the same, or are they
No.
different? They're separate. I know Mormons do the same thing too. They really work really hard looking for facts. So they
Well, I'm just
they have colleges, universities, and these kids go around the world. Like they have archaeological groups, and they really do look for the truth out there. And people just give them a hard time, don't they?
it's just it's just amazing that we know that every different religion talks about clay of some sort, or ground being used to create humans, that humans come from the ground. Now, the second thing I wanted to touch on was, a lot of people don't know this, is that Adam, there's two Adams. Adam that was created by God, that also was his rib was taken to create Eve. And then the second Adam was actually Christ. I'm not sure if I learned it from this book or not. I was just talking about this the other day because I was reading it somewhere else also. I was reading in that Symbols book that I have, that Jesus Christ is also the second Adam.
I hope I didn't offend any of the Mormons and the Jehovah Witness. It's almost calling a Puerto Rican a Mexican and a Mexican a Puerto Rican. I hope nobody's getting angry out there with me.
I don't think anybody is. But it's just interesting because he also goes in and he talks about, he says, among the Shillaks of the White Nile in Africa, there's a myth explaining the various complexions of the human race. Well, you can find that all in other traditions too. How there's different races. You have black, red, yellow, white, sometimes blue, green, depending on some of the text. So that, to me, that's not really a strong argument, because in Africa, of course, you're going to have a lot of religion that talks about how man created the first black man, because you're on African soil, right? You're African. You're not, I mean, you don't know any other colors, right? So based as far as skin color, right? So that, of course, that's
what is it? What is this thing? What is this thing? Humanity has to find out how they were created. It's like this thing, right? I mean, that we never really thought too hard about this, but we have this deep inert thing inside of us. How did we become us? Like, we can't move on until we know, right?
I think we already know. I think just a lot of people who I think the people who know, they're confused because of what they've been taught.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I was at, because I was taught one thing. I don't care anything about black or white. I mean, when I was a little kid, I went to a black father and I went to a white mother when I went home. Both of them stayed. I mean, both my parents were married all the way up until a certain age, right? Yeah. And I was well over an adult before they got their divorce. So
that's
I went home and
right there.
So I seen both sides. I can say the white culture, well, German culture, because they didn't really grow up in America. I mean, one of my aunts grew up in New York, so she has more of that New York accent. My mom grew up here in the South,
and that's a Christian thing too, by the way. Some cultures around the world, even in Africa, they don't marry at all. They have multiple wives or multiple women, and they have tons of children. Yeah, and that's normal. That's normal. And some people right now watching is like, oh my God, that's horrible. No, it's not horrible, because that's acceptable.
That's how
acceptable in
different
their
cultures
society.
started. I mean, look at Cain and Abel, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But look at Cain and Abel. Look
Yeah.
who was in some ways, one was favored for one thing for so long, and then when one was lost and gone, the other one was favored, and it had a city named
Guaranteed. Yeah, guaranteed that a person from 14th century would show up in Africa and say, those are savages because they're not like us. And that is the truth. They call people like that savages. And they're not savages. This is their culture. There was no respect. There is no respect for other people's cultures. When they set foot on other people's land and not have a complete understanding of another person's culture. Instead, what did they do? Enslave and teach their own, impose their own culture, their religion, and then what did they do? They expanded Christianity around the world. Am I correct on this notion?
I mean, different things changed. I mean, I was just talking about how in Egypt, Khnum, which is the next tab, how I talked about how he created humans, and nobody from Christianity will understand that in the sense of in the Christianity terms, meaning that God is the one who created humans, and it was from depending on whichever version of the Bible they read, from New International Version, Geneva Version, or King James Version.
Well, it doesn't even have to be a book. It's written on tablets, on
tablets, yeah.
Yeah, it's on.
But
it's
that's
on
the thing.
stone. It's on
That's
stone, people.
That's the thing. They don't go off of the stone. That's what's really funny is they don't go off the stone because they can't read that language.
Here with us, right up above my head, that can tell you straight off the bat. This is the guy I stick with. Is a historian himself. He'll tell you straight off. He down below me right here. Don't you dare confuse people. But he will tell you that it comes from stones. It doesn't.
It does.
We translate it into books because that's modern day, and now it's translated from books into computers. And what good are computers if our whole world just turns into ashes, huh? Because they won't last long, will they? If it's burnt. Stones will last longer, but now what are computers and data and chips are good for, or even skin or even something, it just will disappear. Everything will disappear. All our knowledge will disappear if we have a form, a way to salvage it permanently so that the next generation or whoever survives can just gather it up and get it and just say, oh my gosh, our previous ancestors wrote it, right?
Yeah.
So that's so important. Man, you are just having fun today, aren't you?
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I have this working with Grok because actually it's interesting you ask that and you bring that up because
I think people are gonna go crazy and they're gonna go cross-eyed and then they're gonna go after you for going cross-eyed.
Because if seriously, I think you're right because a lot of, like I said, this book that we're going over, what I'm saying, it's really it's Christianity before Christ, and a lot of people will say, how can that be? Like you said earlier, but the way it could be is because, well, you know what? Let's just ask Grok.
What am I getting at? What am I getting at? This is what you're going to ask me. This is what I'm getting at. I'm talking about the gatekeepers of the world. Really, I'm going down that rabbit hole, people. I'm talking about the gatekeeper. I started off the podcast with it. It gets to me deep down inside. There are gatekeepers in this world. We don't know them. And then when we get down the line and down the road until our old age, even when we leave this world, we start finding out throughout history. And this man up above me will tell you, when you study, and down below me, he will tell you, because historians will find the truth. They will find the truth because
I think so.
Yeah. Because what do? They analyze. They go through everything. And then when everybody is good and gone from this earth because they've done their darnest to get rid of proof, this man right here will find the truth and will just he just pretty much puts it out there, and that's what this podcast is all about. That's why I love this podcast, and that's why we're talking about facts right now about it. These gatekeepers, they can't run. They can't run. They can't hide, and we're going to be talking about them. That's
They
what we're doing
can't.
right now.
They can, but the problem is they can. They definitely can, bro. It's just the problem is that and you know it's so funny.
They do when they're alive. Now when they're gone, they're just like,
You know,
they
I've
can't
noticed-
defend themselves now.
I noticed it's not about what you know. Like you said earlier, it's not who you know. It's not. I mean, it's not what you know. It's who you know, and that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of people. I've noticed that when it comes to actual facts, when we're talking about actual facts, I like to use everything to my advantage. Of course, I've read the book, so I know what the book says. I know what the person says, and I know what their sources say. Because 9 times out of 10, they give their sources, right? And or you can just look it up for yourself. If they say something that you don't agree with, go look it up and see if they're facts, right? And most people, like I said, will use ChatGPT and Grok and so on and so forth. So he actually has another on this next tab. He has a couple of different civilizations. He has Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Celtic.
What did he
and
talk
the
about?
Scandinavians. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. I'm going to read from each one of these what it says. And I'm going to see what ChatGPT says, because a lot of people are going to sit here and try to fact check it. So they're going to go to Grok, right? Because everybody likes Grok for some reason, or somebody's going to look ChatGPT or whatever. So
Fact check it, everybody.
So we're going to do this. So, hey, Grok, can you hear me? Hold up, Grok. Hold up, it's not even working. Hold up. You know what I'm going to do? Because it's probably
While you're doing that, I'm going to say that the gatekeepers are academics who attempted to teach or research Afrocentric or radical historical perspectives, were routinely denied tenure, faced termination, or found themselves socially and professionally ostracized by university and administration. That is why the professor of this book did not seek a university degree.
And you know, that's facts, because I've done a lot of podcasts with a lot of professors, a lot of geneticists, a couple of geneticists, physicists, literally people. One of my favorite is Dr. Keith Chang, and every single one of them told me that they had to be careful exactly what they were sharing, on so many different reasons.
And it follows through on to publishing his facts too.
Matter of fact, shout out to Dr. Keith Chang. He is actually the founder of SLC 2485. I did a podcast with him. He's actually the founder of what I consider, what I understand as the white gene, where it goes from brown skin to Caucasian white, basically. And he credits this to SLC 2485 and amongst other things. And I did a podcast with him. He'd been on different shows, I think, like Good Morning America. He was on, and he actually funds his research behind this on his own. Now, this research is not to see whether black skin came first and then white skin came second, or whatever the case may be. He's looking for the cure for cancer, for skin cancer. So he found why our skin's colors are the way they are, because his cure for looking for skin cancer. So when people sit here and say, "Oh, that guy's doing this and doing that," if you're in the research of finding something, you find something else.
Melatonin levels.
It's only okay to share it, right? So, he was actually one of my first podcast episodes when I first started doing this, like years ago. Like I just emailed him up. He said, "Yeah, I would love to have a conversation with you." So I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So I have one. It's actually on my. It's labeled SLC 2485. I don't know
check it out.
Other stuff. But so let's see. Hey, test Grok. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. What?
All right. So according to John G. Jackson, he says in his book, according to the Egyptians, a god dwelling in a primeval abyss where he had been since the beginning of time uttered his own name, and by so doing caused himself to live. This god then created by magic a foundation on which it stand, probably the earth. From this mouth, this god drew forth objects which reproduced themselves. He then created two other gods, male and female, who in turn propagated other gods. Next, vegetation and creeping things were created on the earth. Man was finally created from the tears falling from the eyes of the original God. Fact check that. I gotta get something for that. Oh, I think I messed it up when I said that.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
you said
close.
that.
That's from John G. Jackson's Christianity Before Christ. He's summarizing an ancient Egyptian creation text where the god, often called Neber-Chur or linked to Atum Khepera, exists in the
Nebuchadnezzar.
primeval waters of Nun, speaks his own name to come into being, creates a mound from the abyss, and brings forth gods, plants, animals, and humans from his tears. The core matches real Egyptian mythology, especially the Heliopolitan version, self-creation through speech, the first mound, Shu and Tefnut as the first male-female pair, and humans born from the creator's tears. Jackson simplifies it a bit for his book, but the details check out.
See, so he gives she's the Grok said simplify. So basically, when I hear that, and this is just military army terms, so don't get mad. Keep it simple, stupid. So this is the way to keep it simple, stupid. So he's using this as a source, right? So he's not wrong. So he's on the right path so far, right? So we're going to keep going. So with this knowledge that you have, this is what he says about the Babylonians. There were primeval gods dwelling in an abyss. Other gods joined them later and conflict developed. Two of the primeval deities were slain. Another god, a female, created monsters and fought against the 20 arrived gods, but was eventually killed. The new gods created the heavens and the earth from the body of the slain goddess. One of the gods were decapitated, and from the blood and bones, and the first human beings were derived. Yeah, that's it. And I need you to make sure to verify what the abyss is also. I gotta get something for that. Hold up.
Yeah, that one matches the Enuma Elish really well.
See?
Jackson's summary is accurate. Primeval
See?
gods in the abyss, that's Apsu, the fresh water, and Tiamat, the salt water. Younger gods appear, noise causes conflict, Apsu gets killed first, then Tiamat creates monsters, fights the younger gods, gets defeated by Marduk, and he splits her body to make the sky and earth. The humans part is also correct. One god, Kingu, gets killed, and humanity is made from his blood. The abyss here refers to the primordial waters, specifically Apsu, the underground freshwater ocean. Overall, spot on.
So when you hear me say all the time that the Anunnaki didn't come from planet Nibiru, I'm telling you, they always say that they came from the Apsu, the depths of the sea, the ocean. They came from the waters below, not some planet that orbits our sun every 3,600 years. I've been saying that since day one. And the reason why the Babylonians is regarded as the individuals with the idea of the Mesopotamian, even though you got the Akkadians and the Sumerians and the Akkadians. The Sumerians, first of all, their writing system didn't start off because they was writing about gods. Their writing system started off because they was trading. It wasn't until the Akkadians came around and they decided to put a little twist to their gods and their belief in there. Now you got to remember the Akkadians were further north, the Sumerians were further south.
I thought the Arcadians was a myth. They're real?
Well, no, they're real individuals. They just had their stories. The stories about the Anunnaki is not the same. So a lot of people consider the Babylonians as the bread and butter when it comes to the Mesopotamian myths because it's more detailed and an idea. Now, when you look at the when you look at the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature in the book, the literature of ancient Sumer or something like that, it's the same book version. I have both of them, and anybody can look at it. The time frame is around the Babylonian time frame. So when people say the Sumerians said this, no, the Sumerians did not say that. Okay, it's people, and Billy Carson is one of the people that say that. He says the Sumerians said this, and it wasn't the Sumerians, it's the Babylonian. Now, it probably was written in the Sumerian language, yes. But it wasn't the Sumerians that actually said it because the Sumerian language had a certain distinct language and they had their own writing system. They had a writing system because they used gods and trading, but also the Akkadians used that because in order to have a language to trade with somebody, the other party has to also have a language to trade back with you to understand. So it had to happen simultaneously at the same time. It couldn't have been one or the other. It had to have been two people because why would you have a language without somebody else understanding that, right? Well, you can have it within your community, but when it involves trading, like the Sumerians, because they started off with trading, with the writing system, you have to have somebody else to have language to be able to trade with them so they can understand. So that's just, it's just it's just interesting on that. So, but
That's
you
a
can
lot
see,
of information.
yeah, it is.
It looks like we're gonna have multiple podcasts.
Well, we're always gonna
We
have
need more books.
We're always gonna have more books. But this is just. But he was right so far. And then when you go to the Japanese, the world started from an atom. So I'm gonna read these. I'm gonna read all this real quick, and I'm gonna let ChatGPT finish
Let's
it off.
go.
So, or Grok. So here we go. So the
Let's
next
roll
one
the
says
dice.
Japanese. The world started from an atom which produced male and female elements. These formed an egg containing germs from which heaven and earth resulted. A species of reed shoot grew up between heaven and earth and then changed into a god. Living beings were then born, and two of them united, giving birth to seas, rivers, islands, trees, herbs, and the various heavenly bodies. The Celtics, the world was brought about by two principles, one creative and other destructive. The destructive principle dwelt in an abyss. Life in an atomic form was created by the spoken words of the created principle. Man originated in the abyss, then came to the earth. And then the Scandinavians, in the beginning, was a yawning abyss bordered on one side by mist and cold, and on the other side by fire. A spark from the fire melted some vapor, producing a giant. This giant then gave birth to a race of giants. The original giant had a cow, which by licking a brine-covered rock produced the father of the gods. Other gods were engendered, and they in turn slew the giant and created the world from his holy body. The earth covered with water was lifted out of it by gods, and finally two figures were formed from trees and were given life and understanding by the gods. Fact check all that.
I just want to know how old that Egyptian child is on top of that lady's lap on the front cover of that book.
You're still thinking.
Japanese, mostly accurate.
See?
The myth does begin with a chaotic mass like an egg containing germs or seeds. Heaven and earth separate, a reed shoot grows between them and becomes a god, Kuni Toko Tachi, or Umashi Ashikabi Hikoji. Then Izanagi and Izanami create the islands, seas, rivers, trees, herbs, and gods like the sun and moon. The atom part is a bit off. It's more like primordial chaos or germs, not literally an atom, but the rest lines up. Celtic. This one's from Lewis Spence's version of Welsh Druidic lore. Yes, two principles, a creative god and the destructive Sithral, who dwells in Annun, the abyss of chaos. God speaks his name, creating atomic life, primal atoms or man-red. Man originates in that abyss and comes to the earth circle. It's not mainstream ancient Celtic mythology. It's a later reconstruction, but Jackson is reporting it straight. Scandinavian Norse, spot on. Ginnungagap, the yawning abyss, with cold mist on one side and fire on the other. Spark melts ice, forms the giant Ymir. He births more giants. The cow Audhumla licks the salty ice to free Buri, ancestor of the gods. The gods kill Ymir and make the world from his body. Earth from flesh, mountains from bones, sky from skull. They lift the earth from the sea and finally carve the first humans, Ask and Embla, from trees and give them life. Perfect match. Overall, Jackson's summaries are faithful to the sources he's pulling from, even if some, like the Celtic one, are more reconstructed than ancient. Want me to dig into any of them deeper?
All right. So you see how so far he's given accurate information.
Yep.
But the idea is that because he's saying Christianity before Christ and it's titled before that, people are going to be like, I ain't going to read that. That's not true. And they're going to miss out on important information. You can see that different civilizations, different cultures, different people had different ideas of what we just talked about, the creative, the destructive ideas, the abyss, and so on and so forth. But the oceans, the water is what's important, right? It never talks about they came from some different planet that orbits our sun. They literally tell us they came from the abyss, the waters, the ocean. They tell you this. This is basic foundational understanding of how our world was created. Enuma Elish with the water. Yes, they when you look at the Babylonian ideas, you will get Nibiru as Jupiter because they did take their names of important cities and kings and gave them to planets. We can see that in Greek mythology, but it wasn't literal. It was just a king or that city claiming that planet, like somebody finally finding something when they're looking through a telescope.
Now, you guys, you're hearing this story and you're hearing these facts, but you're like, I never heard of this story before. This wasn't taught to me in high school. I'm telling you right now.
Well, wouldn't it? Because it's religion.
Yeah, but
Religion.
here's the other thing. That's history. And there are laws that were passed in 2023, 2024, 2025 in Oklahoma, Tennessee, and even federal laws in Texas. And multiple times there have been bills passed to limit the exposure of his book and other people's books in public schools. So that's why you never heard of this. And we're bringing it to you right now on a podcast live. So I want you guys to learn. I want you guys to hear. We're teaching you. We're showing you. There are books out there, and we're going to continue to push out these books because they're not being allowed in public schools, and they're not letting them. So listen up.
Well, this is the thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because this is important. A lot of people will say, "Well, they don't teach African history in
only
school.
In February."
Well, they teach about the American history. Well, let's put it like this. First of all, I'm going to be the first one to say this. No, I'm going to be the first person to say this. I'm not going to be the first person to say this. I'm going to be the first person that probably told you this. They shouldn't teach African history here in America because this is America. So we teach American history. But
true.
Now, if you want to teach about African history, that's fine.
But, I mean, you could enroll to a class, but like an AP class in high school, because it goes towards college. That would be cool. In an advanced class, you could do that in summer school and get extra credit. Why not that?
People do that. But the thing is the problem is they can't talk about it in public schools because, yes, this is religion. You got to keep religion away from state. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep the public schools away from religion. Now, one thing that I did learn is that a lot of people have it misunderstanding that you can't bring a Bible to school. You can absolutely bring a Bible to school.
That's why there's private schools that actually change their curriculum. They allow it because they have religious texts and stuff like that. They allow those books into their curriculum. That's the beauty about private schools. I was in a private school, so I can tell you that.
So here we go.
Not all my life. I was in public school for the rest of my life, but in the first part of my life, I was in a private school.
Well, let's look at it like this. It doesn't matter. They're going to teach you whatever they want you to believe in the first place. So it don't matter where you go. You know what I'm saying? And my point was about the reason why they don't teach much of African history is because a lot of people don't realize, and it's weird that they don't understand this, but a lot of African history is around religion of some sort. When you look at Egypt, for example, the many different gods, right? So, and you can't teach about your own God, so why would you teach about African gods? So that's a reason. And you look at the Yoruba culture and heritage and religion, you can't really speak about that without talking about their gods. The doggone people, you can't really talk about them without talking about their gods. So it's all religion. So there's a reason why for that. But what do we know about history as far as Nigeria, Somalia, Mogadishu, South Africa, these places? We won't know because that's African history. That's not American history. I don't want to. If I want to learn about African history, I'll take a side course on that, or I'll read books on it.
You know who would watch our podcast? And I just thought about that, and I did not mention it. Are the parents that don't send their kids to public or private school, that they teach their kids inside their own home.
Well, you got to also be careful with that because we do curse on here. So a lot of parents don't even allow that.
To apologize for the cursing. We will do our best not to,
No, but it's just amazing to me that this information is not hidden. I just literally had Grok fact checked me on what was written in his book, and it said it was accurate. Yes, some things was maybe an exaggeration and so on and so forth. But every translation is based off of somebody's own interpretation. So they're the only person that can tell you what they exaggerated on or not. Like here on this tab right here, the next tab is the biblical story of the flood has an appendix which has had tragic historical consequences. Well, we know that there's many floods around the world. I always tell people that maybe there wasn't a universal flood that flooded the whole entire world, but possibly that because everybody lives by a body of water of some sort, it was going to be some type of flood sometime in the future. And then the next tab, he says there are several Hindu versions of the myth of a great deluge, which is the flood. Now in Mesopotamia, they have different myths on the flood. Hindu has that. The Africans have their own floods. Japanese have their own floods. Aboriginal Australians have their own different floods. So obviously it's just normal that everybody's going to have their own flood. And then in the next half, he says, of all the numerous savior gods, Findlay in the work cited above, so there's a work that he had done before, discussed at length the following divinities: Bel of Babylonia, Osiris of Egypt, Prometheus of Greece, Mithra of Persia, and Krishna of India. And these are just other gods that are just out there. And this book is literally just full of quotes from other people who have PhDs, who went to school. And guess what the crazy thing is? A lot of them are white European guys. My favorite historian is Godfrey Higgins. He was a British historian. I talk about him all the time. He wrote these books, Aneclipses, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and Celtic Druids. And he talks about how Black people, brown people, Negro people came from India. There was a time when, on that side of the world, people believed that the world started over there until they started finding older bones in Africa. But then the argument is, well, then that means humans came from monkeys, right? Because the Australopithecus, Afarensis, and Rhombodus are considered, some kind of, I don't know, monkey type species. I don't know. But
well, maybe they survived the cavemen. Maybe they survived and they were like the last of their kind. And they lived with humans. How do we know?
Okay, so here we're going to use Grok for this.
I mean, if they're mentioning them and we're finding their bones, then there's a good possibility that they lived within the human society.
Now we're going to use Grok for this next tab. We're going to use Grok for this one. So here we go. Test. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. What can I help you with?
All right. So in his book, John G. Jackson, he says in the British Museum, there's an ancient tablet from Babylon dating back to about 2000 BC. This document is a description of a passion play relating to the god Bel. And then he puts in parentheses, the same divinity was called Baal among the ancient Hebrews. The dramatic performance consisted often acts or scenes, which we now briefly summarize. And then he gives the different scenes. And this is in his book, Christianity Before Christ. Fact check me. I really like this, man, this fact checking stuff, because this is going to shut down a lot of stuff.
Mostly accurate on the content, but off on some key details. John G. Jackson does describe this in Christianity Before Christ, a Babylonian tablet in the British Museum with a passion play about the god Bel, also called Baal, laid out in about 10 scenes that parallel the Jesus story: taken prisoner, tried, smitten, taken to a hill with 2 others, 1 spared, executed, clothes taken, tomb, weeping women, and resurrection. The tablet exists in the British Museum. The dramatic parallels are real and were noted by scholars like Zimmern. However, it's actually an Assyrian tablet from around 700 BC, not Babylonian from 2000 BC, and it's more of a ritual text tied to a New Year's festival than a standalone passion play script. The date and origin got exaggerated in the chain from the original sources to Jackson. The core idea of pre-Christian dying and rising god motifs holds up, but the specifics Jackson gives aren't perfectly precise.
Well, this is what's interesting to me. You remember how just a lot of people say the Sumerians say something? Others also say the Babylonians said this, and it's not. They just say it because they think that's when the oldest time frame came from, right? It was not necessarily
Smoky.
it's not the accurate time frame. Like I've heard people say all the time, the Sumerians said this, the Sumerians said that, and I'm like, yo, it wasn't the Sumerians. It probably was the Akkadians, or probably was the Babylonians, or probably the Hittites, probably the Syrians. I mean, it could have been anybody. But here's a and I'm gonna show you real quick because I think this part's right here is very interesting. This part right here is actually let's see if I can make my mirror.
I see it. Looks good. Yep.
No, I'm about to change. There we go. So that's the mirror. So this is like a comparison. So right here in his book, he says Babylonian legend. The parallels between the Babylonian and Christian myths are so similar that they have been tabulated by George R. Goodman in an article Easter in the Freethinker, May 14, 1965. He says Babylonian legend, Christian legend. Bel is taken prisoner, Jesus is taken prisoner. Bel is tried to the hall of justice, Jesus is tried to the hall of justice. Bel is smitten, Jesus is scourged. Bel is led away to the mount, Jesus is led away to the Golgotha. Bel with Bel are taken two malefactors, one of whom is released. With Jesus, two malefactors are led away, another Barabbas is released. And then you can see how they have all these, the rest of it is just idea, just similarities between the two individuals. So you can see how somebody says, well, this was probably Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it's written back in the past as a prophecy, and Jesus would be Bel. It's just basically God came to earth and just pretty much reenacted everything that what Bel went through, so that it's just a show, pretty much. This is me, and that's how people knew that was God in the flesh.
So check this out. So this is what I'm going to do next.
That's how you could tell it's proof. Yeah. Because how are you supposed to prove you're God? You're like, oh, I'm God, and like, okay, prove it. So everything that was happening along the way was like, oh my gosh, that's just like in the book. I mean, or not the book, but like written in the tablets and stuff like that. Oh, that was written in the past. Oh my gosh, it's happening again, all over again, the same way. So has to be God, So that's pretty much how Jesus came to fame, and how today, after 2,000 years, we're like still praising Jesus, how the Christian religion has survived. But what about all the other religions? How many religions has there been? And they have not survived as long as the Christian religion. And it has been pushed more so in survivability than any other religion on earth. So one has to think about that.
Deeply. Yeah, and Smokey asked that question, how do we know most established religions aren't talking about the same God, taking into account language barriers?
There you go.
That's exactly what we was just talking about, where languages changed over time, linguistics changed over time. So what Jesus was called today may not be what's called 2,000 years from now.
True.
We know for a fact he wasn't that called 2,000 years prior to that. So I want to
even the name of God isn't even God. We name God, but the name of God is not God. Yeah. God is known by many names.
Yeah. So I'm about to ask Grok. So Grok, there's this idea that Bel from the Babylonian time frame is one and the same, or possibly Jesus Christ, and they have similarities. Can you explain that? Tell us what's fact, fiction, and can you tell us what to take from it? And is there a possibility that they could be one and the same just because of maybe possibly language barriers? See what it says.
Here's the real story. There's an ancient Assyrian tablet from around 700 BC, not Babylonian, from 2000 BC, in the British Museum that describes a ritual where the god Bel, another name for Marduk, is arrested, tried, scourged, executed, or imprisoned in a mountain. His clothes taken, women weep for him, and then he's restored to life. The parallels to the Passion of Jesus are striking. Arrest, trial, 2 others involved, garments divided, tomb, mourning women, resurrection. Fact: the tablet is real. The sequence of events matches what John G. Jackson described in Christianity Before Christ, and the parallels aren't made up. Fiction: the date and exact origin were off. It's Assyrian, much later than claimed. Are Bel and Jesus the same? No. Language barriers aren't the issue. Bel Marduk was the chief god of Babylon, a cosmic warrior who battles chaos in the creation myth. The ritual was part of the New Year's festival, likely symbolic of seasonal cycles or political drama, not a historical biography. Jesus was a first-century Jewish preacher executed by Romans. Different cultures, different contexts. What to take from it? Dying and rising gods and suffering savior figures appear in several ancient traditions. It shows these storytelling patterns, trial, death, mourning, triumph, were powerful and widespread long before Christianity. Early Christians likely drew from cultural motifs people already understood, even if the core message evolved differently. It's evidence of shared human myth-making, not proof that one copied the other directly or that they're literally the same being.
And that's important. A lot of people think that one stole from the other, or so on and so forth, which anybody can have been a savior of people, healing people, and so on and so forth. What's interesting to me is that Bel is another name for Marduk. Well, I have an 1873 Bible.
Wow.
And I also know that
we talked about Marduk before.
Yeah, Marduk being Michael, Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael.
You know, we've already went over that.
And there's a simple reason why we bring up Michael is because Marduk always has a sword, and also there's a serpent underneath Marduk. Just like in today's world, we have Angel Michael with a sword and a serpent underneath him. Same thing, and they both start with an M. I don't know. That's in the English language. I don't know how they name them.
Well, they say Bel and Marduk. Bel is another name for Marduk, but like I said, we've already seen. I've read. It was from that Freemason. It was from a not Freemason book. It was from something else, where it talked about Marduk being Michael. I know it's from my 1873 Bible, and then I read it from another book that verified it, and I can't remember which one it was for sure.
Can I do a shout out real quick to Smokey Smokerson real quick? I wanted to say that he has a website that he does he's a software engineer, and he does things like that, like what you have the problem with the AI with that sound and everything. He actually clears out things like that and fixes engineering problems with software. He is an expert at that stuff, and I just wanted to do a quick shout out to him. I put his website up there real quick on and I hope you guys really enjoy that. So my apologies in stopping the podcast for that, but just a shout out to Smokey. Smokey is a great person, and thanks for stopping by and checking us out.
No, that's cool. That's cool that you could do that. So the next tab, test. Can you hear me, Grok?
Yep, I hear you loud and clear.
So John G. Jackson says the worship of Adonis was quite popular among the Semites of Western Asia around 2000 BC, and the Greeks borrowed it from them about the 7th century BC. The actual name of this god was Tammuz. Since Adonis, the Semitic Adon, is a title meaning Lord, the Greeks, through era, converted this title of honor into a proper name. The Adonis cult was of pre-Semitic origin, going back to the Sumerians, the earliest civilized peoples of Mesopotamia. Fact check that. That's interesting because I always talk about the Sumerians, right? Let's see what it says.
Yeah, let's see that.
Mostly solid, with a couple of tweaks on timing and wording. John G. Jackson is right on the big picture. Adonis comes from the Semitic word Adon, meaning Lord, which the Greeks turned into a proper name. The god behind it is indeed Tammuz, Sumerian Dumuzi, a dying vegetation fertility figure mourned by women, whose cult goes all the way back to the Sumerians. Wow. The worship was popular among Semitic peoples of Western Asia, and the Greeks picked it up around the 7th century BC. Sappho mentions it then. The Sumerian roots are real and predate the Semitic cultures, so pre-Semitic origin is accurate. The one fuzzy part is the around 2000 BC date for the Semitic worship. The Sumerian Dumuzi cult is older than that, attested by 2600
Older.
BC, and it was definitely around by 2000 BC.
Yep.
But the specific claim
Older.
of peak popularity exactly then among Semites is a bit loose. The chain from Sumerian Dumuzi, Semitic Tammuz, Phoenician Adon, Greek Adonis is well established by scholars. Overall, Jackson's summary holds up well. It's a classic example of how these dying and rising fertility gods spread and evolved across cultures. Want me to dig into any specific part?
So what I'm trying to tell people is, of course, I can't read this whole entire book, and people will get the picture. But when I read something like the worship of Adonis was quite popular among the Semites in Western Asia around 2000 BC, I'm going to research that. And before ChatGPT and Grok was around, I was doing this the hard way, reading books, going on the internet, reading articles, reading this, reading that, trying to verify everybody's information. But I got a quick answer right here from Grok, and this is pretty much accurate. This is about the same stuff that I've read personally. And you can dig deeper and so on and so forth. But the point of all this is not to say that this is fact over fiction. It's just saying how accurate this book is. Is this book accurate? Yes, you're going to read the information is going to be accurate. It's going to be by somebody that you might not even like. You know what I mean?
To really summarize the book is pretty much matching all that has happened in the Bible or in other religions and Muslim religions and what they have written, and then combining it with all the other religions in the past. There's similarities that we cannot ignore.
Right.
The similarities are they have adopted the past religions into Christianity, and the dates. We can't ignore the dates, especially Christmas.
But they and I'm glad you said that. Perfect time to get into this tab. Perfect time. So chapter 6, Mithra, the mediator. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier about the 25th. So I'm just gonna read this out while and have ChatGPT Grok fact check it. I used to have ChatGPT do it, but now I switched over to Grok just because I got the check mark, so I might as well use it, right? And instead of paying ChatGPT $20 a month, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to use Grok. But most people that I know, they're going to use a service like AI of some sort to get their answers. They're going to Google it, search it, whatever makes them feel better. All right, so with this, it says, hold on, let me do this. All right, so the next tab I have in my book from John G. Jackson, he says Mithra, an ancient Iranian sun god, was born of a virgin on December 25th, Christmas. His first worshippers were shepherds, and he was followed in his travels by 12 companions. The Mithricists observed weekly Sabbath days and celebrated the Eucharist by eating wafers marked with a cross. The two great Mithric festivals were the birth, Christmas, and the resurrection, Easter. During the Easter rites, the priest placed an image of Mithra in a tomb. Later, the chief priest announced the resurrection of the god by saying, "Be of good cheer, sacred band of initiates, your God has risen from the dead. His pains and sufferings shall be your salvation." I need you to fact check that. And I also need you to see, talk about Zoroastrianism and also how some people consider it the first monotheistic religion in a time frame of Zoroastrianism.
It's mentioned in chapter 4 of the book.
Six.
Is it?
There's a lot.
I thought it was the core analysis of Mithraism.
Oh, hold on. I forgot to stop for a second. I forgot to put this on there. Hey, repeat what you just said. I forgot to put it on there.
Sure, no problem. Here's what I was saying. Most of Jackson's claims about Mithra are inaccurate or exaggerated. Here's the breakdown. Born of a virgin on December 25th. False. Roman Mithras was born fully formed from a rock. Petra genetrix, not a virgin. There's no evidence his birth was celebrated on December 25th. That date is tied to the later Roman sun.
Okay, so this is where he actually get his source. Remember when I was talking about earlier to you, Fat Jesus, about how his idea, this was where I learned it from. So he gets this from, listen to me, Grok. He gets this from Kersey Graves in the world's 16 crucified savior, says that this God was crucified in Persia in 600 BC, citing Godfrey Higgins to the effect that he was slain upon the cross to make atonement for mankind and to take away the sins of the world. This date of 600 BC cannot be accurate or correct, for Mithra was known among the pre-Aryan Indians at a much earlier date. He may have been a man who was elevated to godhood after his death during the dominance of the Dravidians, who preceded the Aryans of the Vedic age. Mithra was the mediator between God and man. He was the great sun god of the Roman world, but originally he was not a personification of the light of the sun, for it seems that he was a sky god originally, and that his identification with the sun came later. Mithraians was the outcome of blending of Persians, dualism, and Chaldean stellarism. As to how, when, and where Mithra was evolved from a god of light in general into a sun god in particular, we have no certain knowledge. The change perhaps took place in Babylonia. Fraser surmised were under the powerful influence of Chaldean theology and astrology. The Iranian deities was assimilated to their nearest Semitic counterparts, the supreme god Ahura Mazda being identified with the sky god Bel, while the goddess Anahita was confused with Ishtar, the goddess of the planet Venus, and Mithra was equated with the sun and Shamash. And this is from source Sir James George Fraser, The Worship of Nature, New York, Macmillan and Company, 1926, page 503. Fact check all that. That's a lot of information for that, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Most of this is unreliable or wrong.
See?
This passage mixes a few accurate points with a lot of outdated 19th century speculation
See?
from Kersey Graves and Godfrey Higgins, both of whom are widely criticized by scholars for making things up or misreading sources. Here's the fact check. Crucified in 600 BC to atone for mankind's sins.
A lot
False.
been changed.
There's zero ancient evidence that
No, I'm
Mithra
gonna
was
get into
ever
it.
crucified or died for anyone's sins. Graves got this directly from Godfrey Higgins, who had no real sources for it. Mithra slays a bull in the main myth. He doesn't get killed. Known among pre-Aryan Indians, Dravidians, elevated man. No. Mithra appears in the Vedic texts, Indo-Aryan, not pre-Aryan Dravidian culture. The idea that he was originally a human turned into a god during Dravidian times is pure speculation with no evidence. Mediator between God and man. This part is correct. In ancient Iranian and Vedic religion, Mithra was called the mediator, especially as god of contracts, oaths, and justice. Originally a sky god, later identified with the sun. Mostly accurate. He started as a god of contracts and light, strongly associated with the sun over time, especially in Babylonian and later Roman versions. Blending of Persian dualism and Chaldean stellarism, identified with Shamash. This is solid. The Fraser quote you mentioned from The Worship of Nature, 1926, p. 503, lines up with what scholars say. In Babylonia, Iranian gods like Mithra got matched with local ones like the sun god Shamash. Bottom line, the crucifixion and atonement claims are fiction from bad 19th century sources. The mediator role, sky to sun god evolution, and Babylonian influence are real. On Zoroastrianism, it's one of the world's oldest religions, founded by the prophet Zoroaster, Zarathustra. Most scholars place him somewhere between 1500 to 1000 BCE, though traditional dates are later around the 6th century BCE. Many consider it the first true monotheistic religion because it centers on one supreme god, Ahura Mazda, in clear opposition to evil. It has strong dualistic elements, though. Want me to zoom in on any specific
this is
part of
interesting.
this?
So remember when I told you?
Wasn't Mithra the mediator between Ahura Mazda?
Yeah, that's what
Which
they're
is
just
the,
talking about.
the unapproachable sky god.
Yeah, that's what she just said.
That sounds like Archangel Michael, right?
But this is the thing. There's every angel was a messenger or a mediator between God. I mean, all of them. But the thing is that what's interesting to me is that it says Kersey Graves quotes Godfrey Higgins, so that's why he's wrong. I've read Godfrey Higgins' books, Aneclipses Volume 1 and Volume 2 and Celtic Druids. And when this person says,
that's why we have him here.
When most people say that they criticize him because he doesn't have facts, that dude literally gives you the sources out this world. Like, and when I started asking Grok and ChatGPT to fact check me, it's just been recent. I've already went over his books twice. I mean, he's literally like his, and what's so crazy is I think a lot of people don't like him because he was a 32nd degree Mason. He was a master Mason. I know he was a master Mason, and a lot of people don't like what he shared. And he used sources. I've literally done podcasts on his books already, Aneclipses Volume 1 and Volume 2. Like,
and where is your podcast? And when did you have your podcast?
I did this. If you go to Rebirth of the Word 7099 on YouTube, is you go to, I believe it should be it'll definitely be under what I've learned from reading this book.
That's why I like cataloging everything that I do.
Yeah, there we go. What I've learned.
Hard to find.
Here, I'll screen share it right now. So if you click the tab, the playlist tab, and you go down to what I've learned from reading this book, full books, you'll see them right here. Celtic Druids, I did a 1 minute thing on there. I did a 39-second on there. That's when I was doing little shorts. And then if you come down here, if you come down here, see, this is the full videos right here. Aneclipses Volume 2, Volume 1, Part 3.
Are these the ones?
Yep, those are right there.
Dude, that's a lot.
See right here. Covered. I did them because he has a lot of information.
I saw you advertise that on X as well.
He has
taking a look at it.
He has a lot of information in his books. Like, his books are detailed. And when I hear people say he doesn't give sources, I'm like, yo, first of all, this dude wrote these books in 1833. So the only thing
all of you watching have a lot of homework to catch up on, because all these videos have been out for a while.
Yeah, all he could do is share what he's learned from reading other books. Like this, he literally tells you from the beginning that he spent 6 to 10 hours a day researching. Now, that's not hard back in 1833, right? That should be very simple and easy because of the simple fact that you don't have to working is not as strenuous as it was as is it now. And you definitely didn't have anything to occupy your mind like TV and tablets and stuff. So 6 to 10 hours is nothing at that time frame, but that's just to show the level of what he's doing. Some people don't even do 2 hours today or an hour of reading, but he uses his information. I feel like when people say that when I use a source, I always say I'm never wrong. Only my source material is wrong. I'm only sharing what I've learned. That's it. If my source's material is wrong, just tell me, hey, this is wrong. This is what you need to look into. And I'll be like, okay, God, thanks for the source. I'm going to look into it. So when he shared what Kersey said, he's not saying he believed it. He's saying this is a source that put him on the way of gaining a lot of more information from what he felt like. So
Daniel says he was going off of Sir William Jones a lot.
Oh, Daniel Hopkins says, he even says Godfrey is sacred scripture. Godfrey is like that dude. Reading his books, man, it really blew my mind. That's why I always go back and reference. And maybe one day me and you'll go back and we'll go through those tabs and we'll see what Grok says.
We need to interview Daniel Hopkins again. You know,
I talked to him on Facebook a lot.
Yeah.
So the next tab,
we'll have him on a podcast. So
yeah, we already talked about it. The next tab is
one of
the prominent themes of Greek mythology was the origin of evil. According to Hesiod, 9th century BC, Pandora, wife of Epimetheus, owned a box which the god Zeus had proclaimed should not be opened. So we're basically talking about the Pandora's box. So you see how he goes back to Greeks and talks about the Pandora box. Well, what does that have to do with Christianity? Well, Christ is who Christ is supposed to be all-knowing good, right? He's supposed to be the most perfect person, right? And evil is going to try to break him. So the origins of evil started basically in some people's eyes as the Pandora box. So we can even ask Grok and see how accurate that is. as far as the beginning of if this is accurate or not. So hey Grok, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I
All
can
right.
hear you loud and clear.
So fact check this. One of the prominent themes of Greek mythology was the origins of evil. According to Hesiod, 9th century BC, Pandora, wife of Epimetheus, owned a box which the god Zeus had proclaimed should not be opened. We're almost done with these tabs too.
Mostly true, but with a couple of tweaks. It was a large storage jar, not a box.
Mhm.
That box mistranslation happened centuries later, and it was Zeus who sent the jar as a wedding gift to Pandora and Epimetheus, not that he directly proclaimed it shouldn't be opened. Otherwise, spot on. It's Hesiod's explanation for why evil and suffering entered the world, and he lived around the late 8th to early 7th century BC, so yeah, roughly 9th to 7th.
So one thing that I learned about jars and stuff like that is that yes, it's sometimes a box or a jar. It just depends on the symbolism. Like it could be the symbolism be a jar, but it was actually a box, or it could have been a box and actually just a box, right? Some people would say a jar, vice versa, but it's all on the symbolism, what they had at that time, I guess you could say. So here's the next tab that's interesting to me. So here's the next tab. It says the close parallels of the careers of Horus and Jesus Christ are listed in the appendix to Gerald Macy's Ancient Egypt. This compendium gives nearly 200 similarities in identities. Dr. Albert Churchwood, one of Macy's disciples, has extracted a few of these parallels, and they give a list below. So verify back, fact check that.
Yeah, that's a direct quote from the Zeitgeist movie. Gerald Massey did claim something like nearly 200 parallels in his 1907 book Ancient Egypt, The Light of the World. Albert Churchward, who was influenced by him, did pull some of those supposed similarities into his own work. The problem is, mainstream Egyptologists don't take Massey's parallels seriously. They're considered outdated, cherry-picked, or just made up. Most of the famous lists you see online, like Horus having 12 disciples or being baptized at 30, don't actually hold up in the original Egyptian
Horus
text.
has
It's
12
fringe,
disciples.
not solid scholarship.
Yeah, so here's the list of all the similarities that it has, and I know I can't have ChatGPT read it. I don't feel like reading all of it, but he gives some similarities. Yeah, it says it gives like let's see, Horus was from 12 to 32 years of age. There is no record in the life of Horus from 12 to 32 years. There's no record of Jesus Christ. So let's ask ChatGPT. Let's just ask one of the, or Grok. Let's ask. So one of the similarities from Horus to Jesus is from 12 to 32 or 30 years of age. There is no record in life of Horus, and from 12 to 30 years of age, there is no record in the life of Jesus. Is that accurate?
It could be
No,
the other way
that's
around.
not accurate. The lost years comparison is a stretch. Jesus is mentioned at age 12 in the temple, then the Gospels jump to about age 30 when his ministry starts. That's a real gap in the biblical record. Horus doesn't work that way. The Egyptian myths don't give us any chronological timeline of his life at all. No mention of him being 12, no mention of him being 30, nothing about a gap between those ages. Horus's stories are about his battles with Set, his birth, and his role as king, not a biography with ages. So the parallel only exists because people are forcing a similarity that isn't there in the source material.
So this actually comes from the Horus gods are discussed at length in Sir E.A. Wallace Budge, The Gods of the Egyptians, Volume 1, London, Methuen and Company, 1905, page 566 to 599. That's the source.
This is what worries me.
Hold on. I was about to give it. This is the source. This is the source that came from. Now I want to know what it's going to say because it's very interesting. Because it's just like, dang, okay, so what about this person? This person actually respected out there in this field. It's got a lot of thinking, bro. It's like, how the hell am I going to combat this?
No, that's not accurate. The pages 566 to 599 in Budge's The Gods of the Egyptians, Volume 1, are mostly about the goddess Neith, companies of gods in the pyramid texts, and underworld journeys, not a biography of Horus. There's zero mention of Horus being 12, 30, or any gap in records between those ages. That specific claim, from 12 to 30 years of age, there is no record in the life of Horus,
Damn.
actually comes from Gerald
Mhm.
Massey's Ancient Egypt, The
See,
Light of
that's
the
why I like
World,
that.
1907, not Budge. Massey was pushing parallels between Horus and Jesus, and this one's fabricated. Egyptian myths about Horus don't give him a human-style timeline with ages at all.
Yeah, see, so you
Oh, is the professor pushing fake news, or was it somebody else?
no, this comes from the source from Sir E.A.W. Wallace Budge. The Horus gods
Damn.
are discussed in length, and it says 566
So
and
that
599.
that person was twisting the facts.
So now what you got to do is you got to go look for this book and see who's telling the truth, right? Because you can't go off of one or the other. Just because Grok says it's wrong doesn't mean that it's wrong. Now you as an individual,
Grok just pulled out the sword, Betty.
No, what I'm saying is that now you have to, as an individual, you have two different sources. You have a book that's telling you something, and then you want to go fact check it. And then Grok says something. So now what you have to do as a person is you have to go there. What I would do is I'm gonna do it right now. See if I can do it live and see if it works. I go on there and I just copy paste, and I hit value 1 PDF, and I go to it myself. It's in the archive system.
I'm on Grok's side right here. I'm betting you Grok is right.
So
100%. Grok is correct.
Here we go. No, I'm not saying it's not correct. I'm just saying before I make an assumption like you just did, before I say one or the other, I'm going to go and look for it myself. This is it right here. This is the book. It's on archive.
All right, let's go.
Everybody go. So it only goes to 555.
What are we looking for?
It only goes to 555.
And what page is this on?
This is supposed to be let me see. This is the gods of the Egyptians.
Volume 1.
This is actually 1904, so it's supposed to be 1905. So I don't know if it came out in 1905. But this is volume 1, and it says page 566 and 599. And there isn't one. See? So that's how you would go and be like, okay, so where is this? Now what I would have to go do is, well, is this a reprint? I doubt it's a reprint.
It says 600 pages.
Not on mine. It says 551.
Oh, what's PPI? PPI is the PPI is the
well, let me see what it says. So here we go.
These back to front pages.
5.
Keep going.
Let's see.
Look at the pages.
See 525.
Yeah. Keep going down.
You
can count those as pages.
And that's it. That's all of it right there.
525.
Yep. So now
is somebody ripping out pages? Jesus.
Or where did he get this information from?
Really?
Where did he say? Because it literally says, okay, hold up.
On his references.
It says 566, 599. It says the gods of the Egyptians, volume 1. London. Let me make sure it's the right company though, because it might not be the right company. Oh, the Masonic Library. Oh wow. I didn't even see that.
Uh-huh.
So let's see let me click this real quick.
Why they be missing pages? Why are they missing pages?
Oh dang, look at all these Masonic books right here.
Now he's interested in the Masonic books. Now we're going down the rabbit hole, baby. Let's go.
I'm not. I'm about to get out of this.
We're going down the rabbit hole.
Forget that. But that's interesting because that makes me think like, okay,
we're not gonna see Rebirth of the Word for like 2 weeks now. Now that he found that place.
Okay, hold on. He may have just.
When was the last time you took a shower, Rebirth? I don't know, man. I've been in the Masonic library for 2 weeks straight.
This dude, he might have put the information incorrectly. Okay, yeah, he did. So the data above is actually not this book. The book is okay. This book is from the Signs and Symbols. Okay, this is from the book. Okay, the way he has this labeled is Okay, yeah. So
That's
the
a
way he has
lot
it,
of books.
either way, it still doesn't have the stuff that I was in there. So the next tab is basically he talks about the stuff that I was talking about, where it gives you the 12 to 30 years on both sides of them and stuff like that. He gives this. I need you to keep keep the crowd ready because I have this book. I'm going to go over to my library and grab it. He says this information comes from the data listed above are from Albert Churchward, The Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, from page 422 to 423. So I actually have that book. I'm going to go grab that real quick.
Boy, if you don't find the page, this man be making up stuff, bro.
Watch, I wanted to get it right now. Watch.
Go get it. Jesus. This guy be making up pages. These pages are actually there or something? So we were talking about Mithra, mythological power in scripture. Mithra was known as a Sol Invictus, the invisible sun. He was completely immune to darkness, possessed hundreds of eyes to witness all oaths, commanded the orderly change of seasons, and maintained cosmic order. He was a brutal warrior god who vanquished the forces of evil in battle. Who else had hundreds of eyes on them? And that was in Ezekiel. Ezekiel had visions of angels, had hundreds of eyes all over them. And that was like an archangel as well. Or angels. Actually, it wasn't archangels. It was a, what was it? One of the wheels of God that had hundreds of eyes on them. So there are angels that are amazing in Ezekiel, in the part of the Bible in Ezekiel.
All right, so just so everybody knows, every book that I have these tabs on them like this, right? Stuff that I find interesting. That's what we're going about on this book, right? So I went to grab the book that this source was referencing. Is this one right here? I've already did this one too already. These are the tabs that I have in this book. So I already did this book. This is from Albert Churchward, and he said this source was from what was the 421 to 423, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, 422 to 423. So let's go to page 422, and this is what's crazy. This is where they say when people say people are exaggerating and all this stuff. If you believe that, then I want you as a person who says this Grok Chat GPT is not going to do it for sure. I know that for a fact. But so it starts on page 421, actually. So here it goes right here. So right here, the different names of attributes or of Horus and Amsu, the risen Horus of the Horus of spirit. And it gives you all the names right here, right? Then continues right here. On signs and symbols, all the stuff on Horus. Okay. So this book right here is that's why I say for me personally, when somebody's telling me, when I'm fact checks, I can't tell ChatGPT to go look at that, or I can't tell Grok to go look at that and say, hey, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I can't do that, right? I can do it only in a sense of getting as much information as I can initially when I first learn something. But when I have two sources next to each other, how can I argue that? Now, me as a person, I would have to go through all this. This is literally signs and symbols. I actually have another book that's signs, that's on symbols. It's in the dictionary. And like I was saying earlier, when you look at this right here, that's the first representation of a cross. So that's why a lot of people say the Ankh, when it comes to the cross, the Ankh was the first. So we got 20 more minutes, so let's push through the rest of these tabs. Gnosticism flourished in Egypt and Western Asia between 250 BC and 400 AD. So a lot of people have a lot of different dates on when Gnostics came around and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to ask Grok about it, because for the simple fact that everybody has their own dates on Gnostics, because Gnostics basically just means knowledge of some sort. Some people even say geometry, but a lot of people will tell you that geometry is knowledge. So we got a whole different idea of this. So I'm just going to ask ask Rock for clarification on what it knows. So let's see. Test. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, here we go. Gnosticism flourished in Egypt and Western Asia between 250 BC and 400 AD. Verify that information.
It's mostly accurate, but off on the start date. Gnosticism flourished in Egypt and Western Asia, especially from the 2nd to 4th centuries AD, with its peak in the mid-2nd to early 3rd. The idea of it starting in 250 BC is too early. Influences might go back that far, but the movement itself developed later, tied closely to early Christianity.
Yeah, see how it says that it gives different dates. So that's why I said for Gnostics, I just say anytime that somebody wanted to have knowledge and share it. I believe that I believe Eve was the first Gnostic because she bit into the tree of knowledge. She wanted that knowledge, right? She's the first Gnostic. And the serpent is the first evil of everybody that wanted to be knowledgeable, I guess. It's some sort of, because everybody says the serpent was evil, but the serpent wanted just to show Eve that you can gain the same knowledge as the gods depending on what you want to believe in. So it's just crazy that a lot of people don't understand that you can think of these stories and theories in different ways. In the biblical book of Genesis, chapter 49, he says we may read the story of Jacob and his children, 12 sons and 1 daughter. A little study will show that Jacob was the son and his children were the 12 zodiacal constellations. And that's where you get the zodiacs and some.
Yeah, Zoroastrianism that you were talking about.
Zoroastrianism. No, I was talking about zodiacs, but Zoroastrianism is where we get the first fire gods, I guess.
Yeah, and then the Babylonian melting pot. When Ezekiel and the Jewish elite were exiled to Babylon, they were immersed in a culture heavily influenced by neighboring Persia. Ezekiel lived, wrote, and died in this Mesopotamian crossroads, absorbing their advanced astronomical, theological, and angelic concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know about that?
Some of that. So check this out. This is even before DNA was invented. In 1921, when Dr. Albert Churchwood in his The Origins and Evolution of the Human Race announced that Africa was the cradle of the human species and that mankind emerged from the apes in the so-called Dark Continent at least 2 million years ago. He was shouted down by his anthropological colleagues, and Churchwood also stated that the first true men were the pygmies of Africa. This was also denied by the recognized experts, but it has turned out that Dr. Churchwood was correct on both accounts. The researches and discoveries of Dr. Raymond Dart, Dr. Robert Broom, Professor Louis Leakey, Miss Mari Leakey, Richard Leakey, and others has established a high probability that mankind emerged in Africa between 4 and 5 million years ago. The African's origin of man had predicted in 1871 by Charles Darwin in The Descent of Man. This opinion was augmented by Jerry Massey in 1883. So there's always been the idea that man started it in Africa. I mean, it's just what it is, right? And then later science caught up. But this is the thing. A lot of people don't consider all Homo sapiens the same. I was just speaking to somebody on X right now. They was talking about is the Morocco African bones same type of bones that are as of the Homo sapiens of modern times. And we can look at our bones and we're not the same type of bones that we were 75,000 years ago. So putting that into an argument would just make everybody.
Were they not thicker? They were thicker and stronger, weren't they?
It all just depend on where you was at in the climate and the terrain that you was in at that time.
I mean, they were definitely a lot stronger than the people today. I'm gonna straight out come out with it. You had to survive the elements. You were in survival mode back then because it wasn't easy. There were no computers or desks. You weren't at home at home working. You were out in the field hunting, fighting wars. Men were especially, and women were at home, but they were hardworking women. They were tending to the farm mostly, getting all the farm work done and everything, and doing it and raising the children. Lots of children, by the way. They were having lots of children, especially when the men got back from war or from something like that. We're just giving you a couple scenarios, but men were not staying at home 24/7. Am I right or wrong on that?
Depends on the culture. Some men did. Every culture was different. Some men did stay home.
That is insane. That's insane. That would be like 50 children. 50 children right there. The men stayed home. One woman would have like 50 children. That would be insane.
No, what I'm saying is that the men stayed home and the women went to go hunt.
The Amazonian women.
now, this is another tab that I found.
Can you share my screen? Yeah. We were talking about Mithra, and I actually mentioned about Mithra and the hundreds of eyes. And this right here, this gentleman right here was sharing.
Yeah, it had all eyes, and it had
this all is eyes. Ezekiel. Yeah,
it had all eyes, and it had wings. Sometimes 4 wings, sometimes 8 wings. The wings were according to the depending on the 4 pillars or the points on earth and so on and so forth. So
and if you guys wanted to support that person, he went through AI and recreated what was written in the Bible or in scripture, called ear to hear is his is on YouTube, and he did an excellent job, because I actually put through his pictures to AI, and AI said, dude, that is so exact. He even went through Lucifer, and I actually took the picture of Lucifer and put it through AI, and it says, is this what Lucifer looks like according to what the Bible says, or whatever historical archive? It says, dude, that looks exactly what they say. And then, he is so accurate with his AI renditions on that YouTube, and it was just incredible how Lucifer looked like before the transformation. So it's insane. He's done such a great job on his YouTube videos. So if you guys want to check him out, Ear to Hear, thank you for letting us use your YouTube video on our podcast so that we can share it with everybody else.
Oh, that's cool that he let us use it. That's pretty dope. But so the next tab is the fame of the ancient Ethiopians. So this is what Herodotus says. So I thought this was interesting. It said the classical home of the ancient Ethiopians was the eastern Sudan, although Homer and Herodotus mentioned other Ethiopians dwelling in Egypt, Arabia, Palestine, Western Asia, and India, again to cite Lady Langard. But the fame of the ancient Ethiopians was widespread. In ancient history, Herodotus describes them as the tallest, most beautiful, and long-lived of the human races. And before Herodotus, Homer, in even more flattering language, described them as the most just of men, the favorites of the gods. Fact check that.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. Herodotus does describe those southern Ethiopians as the tallest, most beautiful, and longest-lived people, living around 120 years. Homer calls them blameless or faultless, the favorites of the gods who feast with them, often interpreted as just and pious. The bit about their classical home being eastern Sudan, with other Ethiopians spread across Egypt, Arabia, Palestine, Western Asia, and India, comes straight from older historians like E.A. Wallace Budge. It's not modern scholarship, but it matches what the ancients wrote.
See, so you see how there's still some confusion on what people will say what is beautiful and what's not beautiful. Because when we go to Helen of Troy right now, there are a lot of people who are upset because they're saying that the most beautiful woman could have been somebody who has African brown skin, right? And it just tells me right here that Homer, Herodotus, and all these other people who would say the most beautiful people on this planet were people of brown skin
Queen
from
of Sheba.
Ethiopia. So it's just so crazy how people can say, well, if somebody depicted somebody as one thing, but they could have meant something totally different. They didn't care. Maybe they didn't care about skin color like we do today. So everything was, so if somebody drew somebody in a certain skin color back then doesn't mean that that's for all their stories. You know what I'm saying? So, and they can change it whenever. So it's just
Also the power was beautiful too. They had power. they really, the beauty was in how much power they have over the kingdom that they were over as well. So you got to look at that. The culture, how they respected the women in their culture.
Yeah. So check this out. So the next tab is, according to Diodorus, the Ethiopians were the earliest of civilized men, and that they colonized Egypt under the leadership of Osiris. Then the Egyptians diffused the Ethiopian culture to all parts of the world. Fact check that and make sure you tell us who Diodorus is. This one's going to be good. This one's going to be really good. Guarantee you. I already know about.
That's accurate. Diodorus Siculus was a Greek historian from Sicily who wrote a massive universal history called the Library of History in the 1st century BC. In Book 3, he reports that the Ethiopians claimed they were the first humans, the first to honor the gods, and that they sent colonists to Egypt, led by Osiris, who then spread Ethiopian customs to the Egyptians, with most Egyptian practices being Ethiopian in origin. He presents this as what the Ethiopians themselves said, not necessarily as proven fact. It's a fascinating ancient tradition, though modern historians see it as legendary rather than literal history.
And I actually have some of his books, so we'll go over what he says actually from his books. We'll go into it in detail, just like we do with this. But my point is, when people says, "Oh, you guys, all black people just want everything to be African and black and this and that," and I'm just like, "Yo, have you not read these ancient historian books? Like, do you not know who this is? Like, this is what this person said. Have you not read Homer? Have you not read Iliad and Odyssey? Have you not read these books?"
Not everybody.
Yo, what is? I'm like, yo, it's not. I'm not saying this to start an argument. I'm saying this is because this is actually written in the books.
Yeah,
depictions.
But you're kind of like you're like an oddity, man. You're like the only person that actually reads every book. Not everybody reads books these days. They read social media.
No, it's not even that. I feel like if you're going to comment on something, at bare minimum, read the original source. If you said Homer said this, and I said, well, I can go grab his book right now from my library and tell you exactly what it says about African people and how they're the tallest and most beautiful, most people, and this, that, and the third. And I can show you where it says it in this text, or just with Herodotus that says that, or any Greek philosopher at that time, Socrates even. I can show you where they talked about Ethiopians and Africans, and people would say, "Oh, we don't want Ethiopians around today." They make jokes about Ethiopians today, but they don't. And modern Egyptians of today don't believe that a group of people from Sudan came into Egypt. By the time Egypt was Egypt, it was a mixture of pot of everybody. There's only a few groups of people that founded that land, and it's so hard to tell who that is. But we also know for a fact that Egypt is in Africa, so we know they're African. You might not be dark, bro.
How did Egypt manage to capture so much of the Israelites and make them slaves? That's my question.
It's not. This is the thing: is what was slavery back then? It's different.
I mean, Moses claims it.
This is the thing. I've heard people say that Irish people were slaves. No, they were indentured servants. Two different things. They wouldn't call them. I never heard.
I mean,
no, hold up. Let me finish.
Slavery is like you can't leave.
No, hold on. Let me say this. I ain't never heard the word indentured servants used for people who were black African slaves picking cotton. I never heard them say that was an indentured servant. No, they said that was a slave. So that's the difference right there before we even go down there. Right. And you can take a black person and a white person. If you take a black person and an Irish person, you strip them of their clothes and all you're left is with their skin. You can tell that the man is black, but you can't tell that Irish man is Irish until he starts speaking and telling you where he's at.
The question is, are they free to travel or go anywhere they want?
But this is the thing. My point is that people bring up and say, well, Africans had slaves and now Native Americans had slaves. It wasn't the same slave that we see in a transatlantic slave trade, where they were whipping people, cutting their fingers off, hands off, feeding their babies to alligators.
That's beyond slavery. That's like murder.
But that was part of the transatlantic slave trade. If you didn't pick enough cotton, you got your hand cut off, right?
That's murder.
There was so many crazy things. There's a lot of books on it. I don't even have to get into it. Anybody can pick up a book and go read about the transatlantic slave trade and see they got pictures of it. Some people's grandparents are in that book right now. People who are our age, their grandparents were in those pictures. You can see them. That's a lot of times the reason why they don't want to teach this stuff in school, because a lot of them will be like, oh, I just seen my grandfather. We just looked at our photo album and I know that's him. You see what I'm saying? So
they're afraid of riots and people like taking down statues in cities. That reminds me, did that happen? That kind of happened, didn't it?
But no, they just moved
the United States.
They put them in
other countries.
They put them in museums, and I think that rightfully they should be in museums. You don't want them to be damaged. People are damaging, so the next best move is okay. You can't do it here. Then we're not going to allow you to come here and do it.
Well, why revere people that supported slavery out in the open? That's the question. That's what the question was for most people. Yeah. Why revere them out in the open and not put them in a historical place? Like the library. I don't think anybody was agreeing to like eliminate them 100% so they don't exist anymore. The existence of them is important because we need to remember. We need to remember that did happen. If we don't remember, then it's going to happen again. Yeah. That's what history is about.
Yeah, so we're done with that book. I do want to say that, because it ended with the slavery part. Slavery was different in different places. Okay, so a lot of people would consider today what we do as far as when we go to work 9 to 5 and all that other stuff is a form of slavery. You know what I'm saying? Slavery wasn't always you couldn't leave. Some people were if you owed somebody something, you became their worker. You did you paid off your debt. That's what an indentured servant was basically.
We don't want that to happen again.
We don't
want those type of contracts again. That's ridiculous, being locked in. And then they take advantage of people too, because now those people, you're supposed to trust them over a piece of paper, and then they could just go around, and because they have so much power. I mean, it's like that company called Bricks and Minifigs, that whole mess that's going on with that streamer. A big corporation has so much power that they can do whatever they want pretty much, and they're using the system. The same thing can happen to any minority, and that's not even a minority. The streamer is not even a minority. He's become a minority pretty much because he doesn't. He's not a billionaire, but it's ridiculous that people that have so much money can do something like that. So we don't want that to happen again. So we're not going to let that come back. That's for sure. We don't want it to come back.
Yeah. So
I've heard it. I've heard about. There's politicians says we want it back, but let's get all the minorities out. Let's get all the Mexicans out, but let's just go ahead and make Americans indentured servants. I'm like, what the hell? What are you talking about?
Yeah, like I said, man, when people who are uneducated and don't really care to understand, they will always say, well, Black Africans had slaves. So that's their way of saying that, what happened here in America is not that bad, because if you're going to be mad at somebody, to be mad at the people who sold the Black people. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. And I don't think a lot of people understand how slavery actually worked in the culture of Africa, even in Native America, because it wasn't slavery. It was a different word that I can't remember that they used in Yoruba. But it wasn't necessarily slave. That's what we as Western people today call it, because we're ignorant on the knowledge of what they did. It was basically, you came to my house. I'm a farmer. You're eating up all my food. You're wearing my clothes. I'm giving you a place to live. I need you to do some work around the house for me. And as long as you eat this food and do this, that, and the third, then you're going to do these things to help out. I can't have you eat. I can't work harder for you to just sit in my house that I'm allowing you to sit here, or my hut or tent.
Now that's cool. I mean, if I live on your farm and I do some farm work,
how it was. That's how it was.
And I help out and I get a place to sleep and I get to eat. And you get to invite me. That was common courtesy.
That's how it started. And then some people said, well, I have nowhere to go. So, well, you can work for me. You can do a lot more work. That takes off less work of me. I'm able to relax more. This is my area. You need to survive. You're going to work for the both of us. That's how it started. That's how it started transitioning into now I don't want to do shit else. And you're going to do all the work and I'm going to beat your ass if you don't do it. That's the transitioning. And a lot of people don't understand that. It was a transitioning. It wasn't straight to the hardcore transatlantic.
Because they were dressed up nice, they were dressed up and I am the high class and you are the lower class. And when I get here, you better get so many bushels, It's like, what?
But no, that's just what it is. There's a transition. And
this change.
And that's why I don't even pay people mind when they talk about that, because I'm just like, let's really talk about it.
I got a railroad to build.
Yeah. So with this book right here, we just went over Christianity Before Christ, John G. Jackson. Very formative book.
I got a spaceship to build.
We went over some of the stuff that was accurate, some of the stuff that was fiction. What we're going to start doing is bringing Grok into our fact checking, because that's what most people are going to do. So when I do these tabs for now and on, I'm going to have Grok up and we're going to fact check it as we go so we can get the right information from the book and see what Grok says on his side. And we'll go and verify, just like how I did with when he was talking about Horus and stuff like that on page 566 on this book. I didn't see, maybe it's something that I see. Maybe I read something wrong. Maybe there's a typo, who knows, but we only seen but so many pages. So that's how you can fact check and see things. And just like everybody makes mistakes, right? You're writing a book, you might mistype something, misword it, dates, numbers, all this stuff starts, anything, right? So, and then we also seen that book is considered under the Masonic library. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to that page, and I'm about to do me a whole bunch of downloads of PDF files. I'm actually, and I'll tell you this a little later, I'm actually building a whole new set of library books on there. So I'm going to go through and have one set of books that is going to be completely of a certain type of books. And I'm not sure which side of that I'm going to pick yet.
Real quick, show my screen real quick. I just wanted to show everybody how Lucifer is supposed to look like. This is actually Lucifer. Out of the Bible into AI. Descriptive. This is how Lucifer looked like in actuality, not the devil horns and all that stuff. That is actually before the transformation, with the snake-like body on the bottom and everything in the Garden of Eden. Straight up. I showed it to AI and AI was like, dude, that is exactly that is the description exactly to just exact. I was like, wow, that's wild. So for those, and remember that these angels, they can transform too. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future with all this. And is it just mythology or just men just dreaming, or these are just from dreams or thoughts, or maybe these are actually an actual entity and some kind. I depends on your belief, but this is wild. I mean, this just blows my mind. Just seeing something like this, I'll just get blown away. But I have to say, you see this depiction in Indonesia, in Aztecs, and in anywhere you go, you see the snake-like figure depicted on stone, and it's crazy that it's not exact in some way, but it is in some form almost exactly the same way. And it's just crazy. And we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of years. And it's like, where did they see this? Or was it passed along through history? Once again, knowledge is power, everybody.
Word. And we'll end it right.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my out. First class flights out Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.
All right. So